Hey there, Jim Hart back at you here with your Q&A Monday from the Hart Law Firm. And today I've got 3 questions that I'm going to throw at you. The first question has to do with rental properties. The second question has to do with the family law issue, when should you move out of the house? Or should you move out of the house? The third question is, how do you know when to settle your personal injury claim? Because this is a big question. You don't quite know if the insurance company is offering you enough money or not. And so the question is, when do you do that? Let's just jump right in. All right, so question number 1 is, let's say you own some rental properties and you're thinking about putting them into an LLC. What are the considerations that you need to think about before you go ahead and do that? The first consideration that I always tell people whenever a client asks me whether or not they should put a rental property into an LLC is they need to know that they need to know that if they put the property into the LLC, it could trigger what's called a due on sale clause with the mortgage. And what that means is that the mortgage company could then go in and say, okay, you need to refinance or you need to pay the balance of your mortgage in full because you bought the property, not an LLC, and when you transfer ownership to the LLC, or you need to refinance that property, the mortgage. Now here's the issue with that. Here's the big thing that you need to know. Number 1, I've talked to a number of mortgage brokers and they've told me that they've never seen that clause actually enforced unless you're behind on your mortgage payments. Number 2, it's just not as big of a deal as people make it out to be. So I wouldn't say it's a huge deal, but at the same time, you need to be aware of that. So don't go changing your properties into LLCs and come back and say, hey, Jim, that really smart lawyer in the Cary, he told me to put my house into an LLC. He said that you wouldn't refinance. It could happen. So just consider that before you go ahead doing that. Should you put the property in your LLC? Now, what if you have 3, 4, 5, 10 rental properties? Should you put all of those properties into the same LLC, or should you leave them in your own name, or should you use different LLCs? What should you do exactly? First and foremost, do not leave the properties in your name. It only takes one time for a tenant to get drunk and climb up on the roof and fall off that and you get slapped with some sort of lawsuit. You can only imagine the types of things that could happen, especially if you're in a college town, you're renting to college students or things like that. A lot of bad stuff can happen with rental properties and you don't want to be responsible personally. So you want to make sure your rental properties are not in your personal name, that they're in an LLC. Number 2 consideration there is if somebody were to sue you and they sued the LLC because you put the property in your LLC, the thing is they can only get that property in the LLC. If you have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 properties and you put them all into the same LLC, well, now the person that sues you or sues the LLC can't just get that one property, they could get at all those properties. And so that's another thing that you want to think about. So I typically recommend that people use what's called a series LLC, and so they can have a series of different LLCs and they put each property into each specific LLC. So that's question number 1. Hopefully that's helpful to you. Question number 2. I'm a little tired today. I did a 5-mile hike through Umstead State Park in North Carolina. If you don't know what Umstead State Park, it's very hilly. My legs are a little like jelly right now, so. Anyway, there you have it. Okay, question number 2, when should you move out? Let's say you're in a divorce situation or you and your spouse are thinking about separating and they want you gone or you want them gone. Both of you want each other gone. It doesn't really matter, but one of you needs to move out to get things moving. How do you do that? When do you do that? There is no right answer to this. The thing that I would tell you is that in North Carolina, nobody can file a lawsuit for equitable distribution or alimony. Equitable distribution is dividing up all your property. Alimony is like spousal support. Nobody can do anything like that until somebody's moved out of the home. So if you're the person that's going to be on the hook for that, or if you're the person that needs that type of money going forward, it behooves you to stay in the house and try and negotiate that settlement before you move out. Now, if your spouse really wants you out bad, then they have some incentive to deal with you. And so I know this sounds terrible, but you may want to stay in the house a little bit longer until you can get that settlement done. I know that sounds crappy, but that's the way it is. If you're the one that wants your spouse out really bad and it's clear that you're going to be staying, then you may have to give a little bit in the negotiations to make that happen. So really what happens here is the person that wants the other person out the most is the one that's usually going to have the lower hand in the negotiations. The person that doesn't necessarily care if they move or they stay, they're going to have the upper hand because they have no incentive to really resolve anything. Now, the other thing I'll say about that is if you move out and you need to be receiving support, now all of a sudden the person in the house, they have no incentive at all to pay you anything unless you file a lawsuit. So you got to be careful about it. There's a lot of legal nuance to this. There's a lot of strategery that goes into, is that a word, strategery? There's a lot of legal nuances that go into figuring out when you're actually going to move out of the home. So that's something you really need to think about. I would recommend you talk to a lawyer about that in your jurisdiction. All right, number 3. Hold on a second. This is not a product placement, but man, I need some coffee right now. Number 3, how do you know when to settle your PI claim? Last night was movie night at our house, and we had the opportunity to watch The Incredibles. If you've never seen The Incredibles, it's a cartoon animated movie about the superhero family. It's by Disney, and the dad works as an insurance adjuster at, what's the name of the company? I can't remember. Anyway, Mr. Incredible works at his company. It's a terrible job. He clearly hates what he's doing. He wants to help people, but he can't because he's an insurance adjuster. So it got me thinking, how do you know when to settle your personal injury claim? And you may have made a demand. This is what frequently happens after you've been injured in an accident that's not your fault. You'll make a demand and then you'll have to wait, and the insurance company will come back with some sort of lowball, crummy offer. And the question is, how do you know whether or not that offer is reasonable or not? How do you know what you should settle your case for? There is no magic formula for this. All I can tell you is you need to make sure you have all your medical bills in hand. You need to make sure you've got all your lost wage and lost compensation information at the ready. You need to make sure you have a pretty good idea of what your pain and suffering has been or will be, and you need to make sure that you know what your future medical bills may be before you can settle your case. If any one of those things, if you don't have a firm grasp on any of that, you really need to go talk to a lawyer and see if they can help you with that. And typically a personal injury lawyer or an auto accident lawyer is who you're going to want to talk to about those things. If you are not sure whether or not your case is valued appropriately, if you're not sure whether the insurance adjuster is giving you a fair settlement offer, go talk to a lawyer. They'll be able to help you. They have access to jury verdicts and things like that. They know what cases like yours typically settle for. If you look up the police reports in Wake County or town of Cary or wherever, you'll see many of the same type of accidents, which means you're going to see many of the same type of injuries. And it's not rocket science for people to do this. We know what the value of these cases are. Every case is unique. Every case is a little bit different. So there's going to be discrepancies, but for the most part, we could probably tell you pretty quick whether or not you're in the ballpark with your settlement demand or not. And if you're not in the ballpark and you can't get the insurance company to come up to where you want them to be or where you feel like they need to be, then maybe it is time to talk to a lawyer who will be able to help you with that. Those are the 3 questions. Rental properties, should you move out or should your spouse move out, and when to do that, and how to know when to settle your PI claim or personal injury claim. That's it for today. Hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please click the link and subscribe. I think it's right over here. There's a little HLF you should see somewhere over here. Click that button, subscribe. Make sure if you like this video, you like and comment. Let me know. I love doing these, and I'm going to continue doing them as long as people keep showing some interest in them. So hope you had a great day, folks, and have a good week. We'll see you next weekend. Take care.